Pay well attention to this video. A man finds two people lying in bed and says he couldn't believe it. He then tells them to get out of bed and explain what that was. The son then says that his father never paid attention to his wife or him, and that's why that had happened. A man was in his bed taking care of some business when his wife arrived with a glass and said that she had brought it so that they could celebrate together. She then tells him to drop those papers and celebrate with her. She then asks if her husband knew the reason for the celebration, but he says no. She then says that she would soon tell the man why, but he asks her to say it soon, because he was too busy. She then says that she was going to do something to remind him of what was going on. She then asks him if he remembered, but he says no. She then says that they were celebrating the day they met, and then the man says that he was very happy about it. He then goes to kiss his wife, but just then he gets a call. He then answers the phone and asks the other man what happened. The other man then greets the man and asks if he was all right. The man says that he was fine, but wanted to know what had happened. The other man then says that there had been a problem installing one of the company's machines, and that it was very important for the man to go to the location to solve that problem. The other man then says that this was an emergency, but the man said that he was not available to take care of it that afternoon. The other man then says that this was a very serious problem and that they needed to fix it, but the man says that he couldn't that day. The other man then says that since the man wasn't calling his company, he wouldn't worry about that either. At that moment, the woman, who had left the room, starts walking through the corridors and ends up meeting the man's son. They then start to exchange glances, and they seem to be very interested in each other. She then starts walking, and the man's son starts watching the woman's body as she walks away. Sometime later, the man was leaving his house when his wife asked him where he was going dressed like that. He then said that he needed to go to his company urgently, as they really needed his help there. The woman then says he couldn't go as she had her needs, but the man doesn't respond. She then says that he didn't want to celebrate their day and that he was just thinking about his work. The man says that he worked so hard to provide a good life for his wife and that she didn't have to worry about that. She then says that the man only thought about his work and didn't have time for her, but the man promises that he would just settle that matter and that he would return home soon. She then says that he could go solve her company problem. He then asks her to understand what he was going through, but she said she wouldn't understand. He then said that unfortunately he had to go to her work and then he leaves. Seeing that, the son of man goes to the woman and tells her not to worry about it and that she could drink the drink he had made. The woman then thanks the boy and says that his father always did that and that he never had time for his family. The man's son then says she needed to calm down, because everything would work out, but the woman said she couldn't take that situation anymore and would file for divorce. She then says that the man was very cold with her and that he didn't have time for her anymore. Sometime later, the woman was talking to the man. She said she was tired of that situation, because the man was always working and didn't have time for her. She says that the man didn't value her and that he didn't take her out anymore and that she couldn't have the normal life of a woman. The man then says that his wife needed to understand his situation, but she said she would not try to understand the man's side. He then tells her that she should understand that he was the only one in that company who understood about those machines and that he needed to go there. He then says that things would get better and that she just needed to be patient, but she said she wasn't going to wait for him. She said the man must have had a mistress who was using her job as an excuse to go after her. She says that she always wore the best clothes, but that the man didn't value the woman he had. She says that she tried everything to get the man to notice her, but that he always thought of her work first. She said that she felt unappreciated and that his son did more for her than her own husband. She says the things his son said to her made her feel valued. The man then tells her that she needed to calm down and that they would talk when he got back from work. He then leaves. This makes the woman furious. He then goes down the stairs of his house and goes to the door, but at this point, his son says he needed to talk to his father. The man then says that he couldn't talk at that moment, because he needed to go to her work. The boy then says that he never had time for his family and that he didn't value his wife. He said his father didn't realize his wife needed him. The man then says that his son was complaining about him always working, but that if he didn't work, nobody would pay for his son's education. He said that if he didn't work, his son's stepmother wouldn't have the things she likes to buy. He then says if his son wanted him to take the woman out so bad, he should do it, and tells his son to take his wife out to dinner or something else. The boy doesn't know what to say, and so the man says he was supposed to take the woman out and the money was there for him to spend whatever he wanted. He then says he didn't want to be bothered with that anymore and leaves. This makes the boy very happy, and then the woman starts down the stairs. The boy goes to her and tells her that she didn't need to cry and then helps her to sit on the couch. He asks if she wanted something to drink, but she says no, as she was just too upset. The boy then says that she couldn't stay that way, because she was a very beautiful woman and that any man would love to stay by her side. He said she was very beautiful, but the woman said she couldn't believe the things the boy was saying to her, as her husband no longer valued her. She says she could no longer feel comfortable with her body, because the man didn't want her around, and that made her not believe in the boy's praise. The boy then says that she needed to calm down and that everything would be fine. He then tells them to go upstairs and then tells her to calm down. He says that she would get better and that she should go upstairs with him. She then accepts and they go up to the bedroom together. Later, the other man hands the resignation letter to the man. This makes him very surprised, and the man says he couldn't do that to him, but the other man says he already did. The man then said that he had dedicated his whole life to that company and that his boss couldn't do that to him. He said he had left his family so he could focus on that company, but his boss says he was fired and there was nothing he could do to change that. The man then says that he would not accept that and asks his boss to explain to him. The boss then says that he would explain the reason for the dismissal and says that the man was being fired because he had no education. He says that his company needed someone with higher education and that the man didn't have that and that, for that reason, he was obsolete because he didn't update himself. The boss then says that he had a tip for the man and says that he should take advantage of the money he was going to get from the layoff and that he should open a shop, because if he didn't do that, he would starve. The man then said that he couldn't be fired, as he needed that job to pay for his house and his son's school. He said he really needed that job, but the boss says it's not his problem and he doesn't care about the man's problems. The man then asks his boss to rethink that and not to fire him, but the boss says that he had already made his decision and asks the man to leave. He asks his boss to give him one more opportunity, because when he was at the company, he always tried his best to do the right things. He says that he wanted to stay there because he really needed that job. The boss then says he didn't want to hear about the man's excuses and tells him to leave the company at that time. The man then leaves the company sad and then thinks about everything he had lost. He says that he had dedicated his entire life to that company and now he was leaving with nothing. He says that he had sacrificed his family and friends for that company, but that he has nothing left now. He then starts thinking about what he could do now, but he can't think of anything and starts to regret all the years he had dedicated to that company. He then arrives at his house very sad and does not find anyone there. He is surprised by that and then starts looking for his wife and child. He then goes up the stairs of his house and goes to his room. When he arrives in the room, he starts to hear some voices. He hears his son asking if the woman is feeling better. At that moment, the man enters the room and asks what was going on there. The boy then asks his father for forgiveness and says that he could not resist the woman's charms. The woman then says that she had done that to his son because he didn't value the woman he had. She said that she was tired of going through that because the man was not by her side and that she wanted more from the man. She said that she always tried to please the man, but he was always thinking about her work and never cared about her. At that moment, the man got angry and says that the woman was always complaining about him working, but that job was what paid for everything she used. He then says that he was tired of his wife and then tells her to leave his house. He then goes to his son and says that now they had to talk. The boy asks his father for forgiveness and says that it was his fault too. He said that he was very sorry for what he had done and that it was his fault and apologized to his father. The man is then at a loss for what to say to his son, and so he continues to ask his father for forgiveness. He said that he just needed his father to forgive him, as he was very sorry for what he had done. The man then says that he couldn't hold a grudge against his son as he was his own son. The boy then thanks his father and hugs him,